Hey, what's up guys, and welcome to this video. Now, I might not sound that happy, and that is probably because I'm not really. And this is the Batman situation. Now, this isn't a should you play Batman, this was going to be a should you play Batman video. In fact, there was going to be a should you play Batman video yesterday. But, as I'm sure you've no doubt been aware, things aren't really that simple. And for that reason, there will be no should you play Batman for the foreseeable future. Hopefully it won't be too long, but essentially there is a problem, quite a big one, with Batman Arkham Knight running on the PC, and until it gets fixed, I don't think it's necessarily, well, it's not, I don't think it's really fair to do a proper review of the game in its current state, because in its current state you shouldn't buy it, and you cannot buy it because it has been pulled from Steam because just the publishers have just been like, well, this isn't fit for sale. And as most people are saying, it's not fit for sale. So this video aims to clear up exactly what is wrong with Batman and why it's not for sale and what you should do about it, essentially. So the first thing is that if you've got this game, you've bought it already, you've activated it in Steam, whatever, then you're going to be able to continue to play it in its current state. Okay, so it's not suddenly going to stop working if you've had it working for a while. That's not something you need to worry about. But if you want to pick it up, I'm not sure whether you can activate the Steam retail codes. I'm not sure about that, but you definitely can't buy it on Steam at the time of filming anyway. Now, the first thing that got people a little bit upset, quite rightly so, was the fact that there is a 30 frames a second cap on the game, and that's why this video is in 30 frames a second. In fact, let's go into the options menu. Like I say, there'll be a full sort of breakdown of all of this stuff and the usual should you play malarkey in the should you play video when it comes out, but for now we'll just take a quick look to see one of the few things that got people upset. Now, there is a 30 frames a second lock, which can be undone if you want to go into the ini files, and then you can change the max frame rate from 30 to whatever you want it to be. Now, this 30 frames a second lock is on there really for a reason, and I will talk about that in a moment. But in the options menu, if you're an AMD user, you have a total of 4 settings that will change performance. One is anti-aliasing. So, yeah, and one is texture resolution, which doesn't make too much impact to performance. That's more of just a VRAM thing. So essentially you've got 3 settings, and it's just shocking, isn't it? 3 settings to decide and alter your frame rate with. Obviously resolution is going to be the one that has the most impact, and actually, believe it or not, I've been running this at full fat, I was going to say 4K, full fat UHD 4K, running at 30 frames a second off a GTX 980, and actually I've been getting a stable 30 frames a second, which is pretty surprising really. My motto really has been, if you've got the game and you are fortunate enough to have a high resolution display, then just basically go for the highest resolution you can and try and get it running at 30. Because if you are like most people and you're running off a 1080p monitor, the thought of running 1080p 30 is not what people want to be doing. The NVIDIA GamesWorks settings, I'm not sure how well optimized they are. I imagine actually they're not too bad at all, but it's just quite difficult when you've got to sort of analyze the frame rate through all these other things as well. But anyway, you've got these settings here, and there are not enough, and you can't turn the cap off unless you do it in the ini files. But then the reason the cap's there is just because the performance of the game isn't really that smooth. It can drop anywhere from 60 down to something like 30 if you have the frame rate unlocked. If you have the frame rate locked at 30, then you're going to notice that you'll get some drops, but they're essentially could, in theory, be half what the drops would be if you unlocked it to 60. And because things like this at the moment, the Batmobile sequences, and you have a lot of sort of like quick time events that seamlessly go in and out of the game, those drop your frame rate. So it's going to be pretty jarring if you are trying to run at a constant 60, because you're most likely going to be able to not going to be able to sustain that, and it's going to get a load of dips and jumps. Granted, if you have G-Sync or FreeSync, this will minimize that, but yeah, it's not really what you want to be doing, is it? So I guess the real question is, can you play the game in its current state? Well, the easy answer to that at the moment is, if you haven't bought it, no, because obviously you cannot pick it up. But here's the thing, I love Batman. If you know me, you know this channel, you'll know that the Batman games are by far my favourite games. Well, definitely one of my favourite games. I love this series, I love what they've done, and I've played Arkham City maybe 4 or 5 times all the way through. I love it, I can't get enough of it. So you can understand how disappointed I was when I get hold of this, and it's nothing but bad news. One of the other main problems, and the problem that I've noticed but not noticed as much as other people, is this texture leaking problem. And essentially what that is all about is where textures aren't loaded properly, and you'll come up to something like, say, a sign or the side of someone's face, and it'll be a low resolution texture, so you have a lot of the texture missing, and it basically looks crap, and it's pretty obvious. And this shouldn't be happening because the game is using too much VRAM, and for whatever reason textures are going missing in that VRAM. Now, there seems to be a very strong correlation between the speed of your hard drive and how much of a problem this is, because to be honest, I've only noticed this twice, and even then it hasn't really been that obvious. But if you look at some pictures online of people running this off a standard hard drive, you will see that this problem is a problem. Now, to be perfectly honest, the best way to run this game is, like I say, at high resolution, at 30 frames a second, off of an SSD. And the reason for that is because the game performs a lot better with that 30 frames a second lock on, and if you have any GPU horsepower at all, you probably should be able to get it to sustain a 30 frames a second with maybe a couple of dips here and there. If you have a GTX 980, then I can say safely that is something you can do even at 4K, and the game actually looks really, really good. I mean, there are quite a lot of post-processing effects that can get a little bit annoying, and there aren't many options to change, which is pretty damn frustrating, as I've already said. But here's the thing. For me, personally, and I know this isn't something that a lot of people are saying, the game has not only been playable, but it's been pretty enjoyable. I do not want to be playing this game at 30 frames a second. If I had the choice, I would downscale it to Quad HD 1440p and run it at 60 frames a second. But I'm kind of making the most of it, and being able to run it at 4K at 30 frames a second is kind of something, well, I have a choice anyway between running it at 30 frames a second 4K and 1440p 60, so it's almost like the choice has been made for me. And I'm roaming around the streets now. Obviously, while recording this at 1080p, there aren't any dips or jumps or anything. I think I noticed one small thing where I quickly went from one side of the city to the other. But overall, it's kind of, for me, I know this probably doesn't really help you if you're having problems, but for me, actually, the game is performing quite nicely. How am I going to do this? I can do that, can't I? Yes, look at that. And then this is one of the quick time events that I was talking about earlier, where your frame rate can quite suddenly drop if you don't have much left in the tank. So where's the next step for Batman here? Well, like I say, it's been pulled, and it's not going to be put back up until it's in a fit state for people to play, because chances are you probably don't have this game on an SSD. You don't have a high resolution monitor and a high performance graphics card to run it at that resolution, and you're going to be forced to play the game at 1080p 30, which no one that has a PC wants to do. I mean, this 1080p 60 has been something we've been doing on PCs for years and years and years. So it doesn't matter what the consoles can or can't do. On PC, that's not good enough. And clearly what's happened here is that the outsourced PC version just hasn't had enough time, hasn't had enough resources, and we, the gamers, have suffered for it. If you have bought this game and you do want to return it, you can do that either in your retail outlet or through Steam. If you've bought it through somewhere else, then it might not be quite as simple to do, but that is something you'll have to sort out for yourself. So I guess the main conclusion is, I've got this game, I've been enjoying it when I can, I haven't run into too many problems, and I'm not going to stop playing it. I'm not going to wait until the game has officially been fixed. I'm just too involved in the game. The game itself is very, very good, and I'm looking forward to doing a full review when it works for everybody. But until then, I guess there's not really too much to say. You don't have the choice of buying it if you do want to buy it, but if you did, I would still say it's definitely not worth it. So thank you so much for checking out this look at performance anyway. It's not a video I want to do, but it's a video I think needs to get out there. It would have been should you buy, and it would be a no, but since the whole fiasco has sort of risen, things have got a bit deeper, and things that don't normally happen have happened, I felt we kind of needed a video to bring everyone up to speed if you weren't already. So thank you so much for checking out this video. Like I say, like this video if it's been useful, dislike it if it hasn't, and here's hoping that the proper version and the proper PC version actually lives up to the sort of Batman franchise, because although we've had problems in the past, the eventual ports have always been pretty good. Arkham City has been one of the few games, I have to say, that still ages really well, that use the Unreal 3 engine, I have to say. If you run it now on a, like I say, a 4K screen, it still looks brilliant and still looks pretty modern. And this takes it a step further, but unfortunately it's just not optimized in the slightest. And that's how I will have to leave it, unfortunately. So thank you so much for checking out this video for the third time, and I will see you in the next one.